What is a shared world series, and should authors consider doing this? This is where you are going to be working with a group of authors to create your own individualized stories, but in the same setting at the same time. So, for example, if My Siren War Saga was in a shared world series, which it's not, what is a shared world series, and should you be considering doing it as an author? A shared world series is where you're going to be working with a group of authors. This can be you and one other person, you and 20 other people, and you're going to each write your own individual stories in the same character universe. So you're going to write a character and I'm going to write a character, and they may have like a very little bit of overlap. I might mention your character in my story. You could mention me in your story, but they're not the same story, but they're in the same place. So the same universe, the same country, the same time, the same city. For example, let's just say we were going to do a mermaid shared world series. I would write a story about my mermaids, and you would write a story about your mermaids. Our mermaids are not really going to interact, but we do have the same mermaid queen who lives in the same mermaid palace, who makes the same decisions for the country, and your mermaids will be impacted by that the same way my mermaids are impacted by that. And so we're going to have overarching themes. It's like a dystopian novel where everybody lives in the same city and has to deal with the same overbearing government, but we're going to see each person's story as they go off on their own mission to do their own things. There may be some overlap where my character meets your character, I mention your characters, I have a short scene with your approval with a little bit of dialogue, but it's really not the same story. So it's, if somebody likes this universe that we built, they can read my books and just stick with my books, or they can read my books and your books and her books and his books. So a shared universe is where you have universal truths that everybody is going to be subjected to live under. With this in mind, if you're going to do it, you have to work with a group of authors that you enjoy working with and can come together to collaborate on this. There have to be specific rules. So you're going to say, okay, in this shared universe, you can mention my character in passing. You may use a couple of lines of dialogue as long as you run it by me. You may, bring up some characters, but not other characters. Or you can actually have scenes that interact where you're going to come in and you're going to help write those particular scenes. You can work this however you want in their contract that you are creating with the people you are going to be working with. And yes, you do need contracts in place for this one because you're using some of the same characters, especially, the overbearing government and the world building and all those things. We don't want any copyright issues, so we have to have all that covered under a contract. And so with that in mind, you're going to come together to have a meeting about this, and you're going to do your world building together. Here's how the magical system works. These things work. These things don't work. And if somebody has a question, they can ask the entire group. There is a book Bible, the world building Bible for everybody to access. And then you decide how much right people have to write your characters into the stories. It's usually good in shared worlds to have at least a mention or two of some of those other characters, because the goal with this is to get readers to read your collection of stories and everybody else's collection of stories. So if they come in on your story for our shared world and they want more, they're going to come to me. If they come in on my stories and they want more, now they're going to go to you. So you want to make sure you have some touchstones, some things where they can say, oh, I remember that specific shop that the character in his story went into. Now this new character in the new series from this girl is going into that location as well. I know what this looks like. I understand who the shop owner is. I get what they sell here. And I know she's on a mission because they do secretive things in the back here. It's going to have some connections, some touchstones, some points that are going to be again and again and again and again coming up inside of those stories. So you need to work together with your group. Now, I recommend doing this small at first, and then you can expand from there. If you have a really well built out thing, you can continue to bring in new authors. You can each have mini series inside of it. So this can be as simple as one book each. You each get one book. You get to write one character story, and that is the end of it. Or I could have a trilogy in it. You could have a trilogy in it. He could have a trilogy in it. All of the things, right? So you have to define all of this as the writers beforehand and then have the contracts, the paperwork in place. Now, you do not make any profit off of my book, and I do not make any profit off of your book in this shared world series. This is going to be something where you're each responsible for all of your things. As long as you follow the guidelines, you can participate in this shared world. And then you kind of market these together. And this can be market your own books. I'll market my own books, but I'll also talk about your books. I'll put your books in the back of my books, that kind of thing. Or you can all pitch in and run ads to these different things. Now, I have seen some shared worlds that are kind of like consecutive stories. So I write my character, and then I have your character at the end of my book, and then the next book is your book, and it transitions into your character. So you can do these completely independent of each other or flow from one thing to the next and be independent stories, but in part of an arc, so that you can pick it up and just read the one, or you can get a full storyline if you read them all. The goal here is to work together on your marketing, whether it is just organic, hey, I'm talking and I've got a book, but there's also more books from these other authors in this world if you like mine, or it can be paid marketing where you're running ads to first books in series or the first book in this shared world. If it's kind of something that kind of goes with it, you could take turns. It's something that you have to come up with as the group of authors who are navigating this shared world. Shared worlds are really fun, but you want to make sure you have very clear contractual guidelines on what the expectations are, what you're allowed to do, deadlines, and you want to make sure that you have a very clear pattern of who's releasing when, why, how, all of those things. You can even say there's a specific release that we're going to be doing with these, and you have to do it this way if you're going to be a part of the group. So you can get as specific as you want or as broad as you want, and then you have those world building Bibles that everybody has to adhere to. You can decide what you want to do from there. It is a fun experience if you can work on the same timeline or the same if I'm a fast writer, you should be a fast writer kind of a thing. Otherwise, it's going to be a really long project for people who write really fast and a really slow project for the people who write really slow. And so you just want to make sure people are on the same page. You have all the same expectations. You have all the paperwork and contracts in place, and everybody knows what is expected of them. And then have a duration. Have a very clear duration. Like, this is how long we're doing this project for. And after this point in time, this many years or whatever it is, this is how we move forward. You can separate books out. You can say books must be taken off the market. You can say we're just going to, at that point, at the 5-year mark, at the 10-year mark, at whatever, we're all just washing our hands and you're responsible for yourself. And if some people let it die, fine. And if some people keep it going, cool. It's all up to you. You have to sit down and you have to plan this before signing on. Don't write anything until you have everything negotiated and in your contracts and in your paperwork. Expectations are clear, and repercussions for not living up to those expectations are also clear as well. And that could be a huge thing and that could be a nothing thing. It depends on who you are, how you're working this, but shared worlds can be really fun. They can also be a lot of work, but it's also a really nice way to get easy marketing for everybody involved, especially if you're talking about each other's books in the backs of your books and moving forward from there. If you have questions on shared worlds, go ahead and drop them down below. There's tons of more information we can share. But this is just a very basic overview of how you can be implementing a shared world into your writing schedule. Again, lots of ways that you can do this. If you need examples or if you need mentorship, you can go ahead and let me know. I do offer consultations for things like this if this is something you want to do with your friends, but you can really just jump in and do most of this on your own, get a lawyer for your contracts and things like that. But you know the drill because we talk a lot about that here on the channel. Drop your questions on shared worlds down below and we'll see in the upcoming episodes as we continue to help you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most profitable and most stress-free year ever. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.